just indicated, we're going to be dealing with a number of issues related to matters pertaining to the mandate of the Commission. So the first issue we're dealing with is the preparations for local government elections. Ahead of each general election of municipal councils, a number of dependencies must occur in sequence to ensure the successful election of local representatives. The trigger for the preparations is the minister responsible for COGTA publishing formulae for the determination of the number of councillors for the three categories of municipalities. In turn, members of the executive councils, that is, provincial MECs, must apply the formulae to determine the actual number of councillors for each municipality in their respective province. Following the determination of the number of councillors, the Municipal Demarcation Board starts the process of delimiting ward boundaries. Currently, the Minister and MECs have performed these duties. This has enabled the MDB to launch the ward delimitation public participation process on the 3rd of April this year, thus marking the start of the ward delimitation exercise.
Recording in progress.
That process will culminate with the MDB handing over to the Commission the final ward boundaries at the end of October this year. Those wards represent the political boundaries within which the next general elections of municipal councils will be contested. In a corresponding election in 2021, there were 4,600 wards across the country. On receipt of the ward boundaries from the Municipal Demarcation Board, the Commission will in turn undertake an assessment to ensure that the boundaries of its network of voting districts are aligned to the wards. In instances where, as a result of the demarcation of wards, voting districts no longer accord to the wards, the Electoral Commission will undertake projects to communicate and re-register the affected voters to ensure that they are registered in wards of ordinary residents. On its part, the Commission has begun preparations for the next general elections of municipal councils, informed by, among others, the following considerations. 1, in terms of the legal scheme, the term of a municipal council subsists for a period of 5 years. 2, an election must be held within 90 days of the end of the term. 3, the end of the term is calculated from the day following the date of the last general election. The elections of the current municipal councils, therefore, the elections of the current municipal councils were held on the 1st of November 2021. Therefore, on that reckoning, the elections must be held between 2nd November 2026 and 30 January 2027. The authority to set a date and call an election is within the statutory remit of the Minister of COGTA. In this regard, preliminary consultations between the Commission and the Minister have commenced. Now we turn to the subject of electronic voting. In March 2025, the Commission hosted an international conference on the feasibility of electronic voting in South Africa. At the conference, the Commission launched a discussion document to start a national conversation on the use of technology in elections. The discussion document assessed, amongst others, the following: reasons for considering the introduction of e-voting in South Africa, the relevant constitutional principles, policy, and legal framework that must precede the introduction of electronic voting, available electronic voting options, their underlying technologies, and cost implications, relative benefits and challenges of a diverse options bearing in mind the South African context, attitudes and concerns of the public and key stakeholders regarding e-voting, opinions and preferences of marginalized groups, including persons with disabilities and rural communities, experiences of jurisdictions that have successfully implemented e-voting and those that have stopped using e-voting. The key lessons from this conference are as follows. Public trust is key in the successful adoption of e-voting. It is thus exceedingly important that the process is both accessible and inclusive. Successful e-voting systems require robust, reliable technological infrastructure, including secure servers, stable power sources, and reliable internet connectivity. Implementation of e-voting must help the country transcend some of its institutionalized challenges. For example, the digital divide, low levels of internet penetration in certain social settings, illiteracy, and accessibility for persons with disabilities. E-voting must enhance the efficiency of electoral administration. It must enhance transparency in election and trust in electoral outcomes, as well as improved voter convenience. E-voting must contribute to increased participation by certain voting demographics. But in and of itself, e-voting will not impact turnout of persons who have opted out of the electoral process. In other words, persons who do not see the value in voting will not vote just because there is a new voting platform. A thorough analysis of the total cost associated with e-voting must be undertaken. It must not be accepted as fact that e-voting would reduce the cost of administering elections. So, armed with the conference lessons, the Commission is rolling out a six-month engagement period to receive views from stakeholders, voters, and interest groups. The submissions will enhance and inform the final policy document on e-voting. So, in this regard, the 6 months period will conclude at the end of September and followed by a period of review of the public submissions and then drafting of the final policy for consideration in Parliament and through the executive. It is important to know that the Commission has not yet made a decision on the use of e-voting, and certainly this is not contemplated for use in next year's municipal elections. Now we turn to the election of representatives to municipal councils. The Electoral Commission is responsible for the election of councillors to municipal councils in between general elections. There are two categories of such councillors. First category is ward councillors. These are elected to represent a defined geographic area, as we all call it, a ward. They can be nominated by a political party or be an individual not associated with a party, what we call independent candidate. The only way to elect or replace a ward councillor is by way of an election in the concerned ward. From June 2024 to date, in other words, since the last general elections, the Electoral Commission has administered 132 by-elections to replace ward councillors. Historically, in the period following a general election, parties change representatives from local to provincial or local to the National Assembly or even the National Council of Provinces. This accounts for the majority of councillors that were replaced since the general elections last year. The highest number of ward vacancies arose in municipalities in Limpopo with 28 vacancies, followed by KwaZulu-Natal with 27 and the Western Cape with 16. And the average voter turnout in these by-elections is 33%. Over the last 15 years, the average number of by-election administered in a financial year stands at 112. Now, the second category of councillors are proportional representative councillors who are elected from lists of parties to represent the party in the municipal council in proportion to the votes each party receives in an election. In the period since elections last year, the Commission has replaced 425 proportional representation councillors, normally called PR councillors. On average, the Electoral Commission replaces 353 PR councillors in a financial year. Now we turn to the matter related to the registration of political parties and cancellation of those that are inactive. The Commission is the register of political parties. Currently, there are 609 registered political parties, of which 383 are registered on a national level, while the balance of 226 are either registered provincially or on a municipal level. Registration as a party confers certain benefits. Among those is that the Commission is obliged to protect the registered names, logos, and abbreviated names of registered parties. On 17 February this year, the Commission, acting in terms of Section 17 of the Electoral Commission Act, gave notice in writing to 192 political parties of its intention to cancel the registration of those parties. There are certain obligations imposed on registered parties. Included in those is that a party that is not represented in either a municipal council, provincial legislature, or National Assembly must indicate to the Commission of its continued existence. This prescribed indication must be received before the end of January each year. Following the expiry of the date for the 192 parties to make representation, the Electoral Commission provides an update as follows. 136 parties have made representations to preserve their status as registered parties. 3 political parties have requested the Commission to cancel their registration. 53 political parties did not respond to the invitation to make representations. Once the Commission has made the decision in respect of all those parties, the register of parties will be updated. The cancellation of the registration of inactive parties is necessary to ensure that only active parties remain on the register. The cancellation of inactive parties will also free the usage of names, abbreviated names, logos, and color schemes of aspirant parties. During the last national and provincial elections in 2024, only 70 or 16% of the 449 parties registered nationally and provincial actually contested the elections. Of the 70 parties that contested, only 20 received enough votes to gain representation. Now we turn to the schools democracy program and our tertiary institution program. As we reflect on the strength of our electoral democracy, the Commission continues with its effort to engage South Africa's youth in electoral processes, ensuring that young persons understand their power and responsibility as voters. According to Statistics South Africa, from 1996 to 2022, the total youth population in South Africa rose from 14.7 million to 21.6 million, which translates to an increase of just under 7 million. Young persons in the age cohort 18 to 34 thus constitute a third of the total population of the Republic. Concerning, however, is that the rate of registration by this demographic has not kept pace with their growth. As at 22 April this year, the total number of registered voters stood at 27.6 million. Young persons in the age category 18 to 35 account for 28%, or 7.9 million of the total registered population. Of the approximately 9,473 councillors elected in the general elections in 2021, only 1,421, or 15%, were persons younger than 35 years. Similarly, only 93 out of the 889 representatives elected following last year's general elections were young persons. In recognition of the youthful character of the country's population, the Commission persists with civic education drives targeting young learners and students across the country. The drill will focus on all university campuses and 180 technical and vocational training colleges, as well as private colleges nationwide. This ensuring that young persons are not only informed, but also actively participate in electoral processes. Additionally, the Commission is deploying campus-based registration ambassadors to assist students at the various tertiary institutions to register and update their registration details. This is crucial for ensuring that students are correctly registered and can vote at the correct voting station in future elections. The Commission has already reached out to no fewer than 400 high schools in this month of April, encouraging students to register and to understand the importance of their participation in elections. This effort is part of a broader goal to foster a culture of civic responsibility. Mindful that youth in educational institutions do not represent the totality of the youth milieu, The Electoral Commission Civic and Democracy Education Program continues to play a pivotal role in engagement with citizens. In the period leading to national and provincial elections last year, the Commission hosted no less than 204,000 face-to-face civic and voter education events. Research indicates that a substantial number of voters still prefer to receive content during face-to-face interactive workshops. Through these efforts, the Commission is not only facilitating mechanics of voting, but also empowering citizens to take ownership of their political rights. The Electoral Commission remains committed to creating a future where every citizen understands the power of their vote and is actively involved in the democratic process. Now, we turn to the overall voter registration processes. The Constitution guarantees free and fair elections on the basis of universal adult suffrage underpinned by a common voters' roll. The Commission has, since 2021, implemented an additional modality to register voters. The introduction of the online self-registration has proven to be effective, with young individuals turning to this platform to register. This advancement represents an important achievement in enhancing the accessibility, efficiency, and user-friendliness of the voter registration process for all citizens. The implementation of the online self-voter registration is positively impacting the maintenance of the voter's roll and the currency of the voter's information on the voter's roll. Since June last year, the Electoral Commission has interacted with 408,000 voters across its voter registration platforms. 258,000 of these were persons who were registering as voters for the first time, and the majority of whom were young persons. We take this opportunity to urge all eligible South Africans to use this modality to register, and those who are already registered to check and, if necessary, update their registration details to ensure that they continue to shape the affairs of their communities by participating in by-elections in wards where they are ordinarily resident. Now we turn to party funding matters. As we all know, the 2024 elections did not yield any representation of independent candidates. In consequence, only political parties are represented in the national and provincial legislatures. These parties will be allocated a total of 355 million from the national fiscus for the current financial year. This amount will be distributed among the 20 represented parties over 4 quarters of the current financial year. In each quarter, the Electoral Commission will receive and distribute an estimated 83 million among the 20 parties in terms of a prescribed formula of 90% proportional and 10% equitable allocation. The Commission has finalized its 2023-2024 Political Representatives Fund Annual Report. The report is currently being audited by the Auditor General, and the audit outcomes will give an assessment of how the Commission has discharged its responsibilities in the management of the Political Funding Act. The annual report will also contain extracts of audited financial statements of the different political parties, including 15 that were represented prior to the 2024 national and provincial elections. The fourth quarter donations disclosure report of political parties will be issued during this month, during May 2025. This report will cover the period 1 January to 31st March 2025. Little fundraising and donation activity was observable during the past 2 quarters. Fewer political parties declared donations above the 100,000 threshold compared to the period in the lead-up to the national elections last year. Now, after 4 years of implementing the Political Funding Act, the Electoral Commission will host the first ever symposium on political funding in South Africa. The symposium will be held under the theme, Sustaining Multi-Party Democracy Through Enhancing Political Funding Regulation. The symposium will traverse topics such as the influence of money in politics, transparency in funding, accountability, and the desirability of reforms to strengthen the regulatory framework. The symposium will draw participants from a variety of sectors covering politics, academia, legislative bodies, the executive, non-governmental, non-profit organizations, the media, and targeted international as well as business organizations. This symposium will take place in Durban from 18 and 19 June. As we approach Freedom Day, and on the occasion of the 31st anniversary of South Africa's first democratic elections on 27 April, the Commission joins the nation in celebrating this moment of democratic breakthrough. The day does not only mark a break with our past, it also memorializes the beginning of our nation's journey towards a democratic society. For its part in strengthening constitutional democracy, the Commission will endeavor to ensure the delivery of credible, free and fair elections. We wish to thank you.
Thank you so much, CEO. Quite a detailed statement there. A lot of activities we're undertaking as the Electoral Commission. I'm going to open the floor for questions, one at a time, and then let's see if there are any other matters that we need to clarify. Thank you.
Mr. Shubur is going to be taking the question, so we're going to... Shubur, can you... for a moment, I'll be Mr. Shubur.
Yeah. I've opened the floor for questions. Any takers? Are we all good to go? I've got a hand up that side, and then number 2. Let me first take the first hand. Introduce yourself, and then the media house you represent.
Thank you, Kate. It's Natasha Puri here from SABC News. I think at the beginning of your briefing, you mentioned the work of the Interministerial Committee that's tasked with overseeing the preparations for the electoral process. Can you just also give us perhaps a detailed report as to how you work hand in hand with this Interministerial Committee? Also, just a follow-up in regards to the by-elections. We saw those various political parties in Ward 82 in the city of Johannesburg, as well as Ward 110, eThekwini, that had said they were going to lay a complaint with the Commission. They alleged that there was voter manipulation in both wards. I know that in eThekwini, I think the IEC in Durban had confirmed, or KZN had confirmed, that they've received a formal objection. So in regards to both wards, have you received formal objections, and what is the status of that so far? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me get Ntate Shiburi to respond before we get to the next question. I'm coming next.
Okay. The by-elections, one in the city of Johannesburg and the one in KZN, complaints that were raised by political parties were that certain persons who were not ordinarily resident in those wards were allowed to register against addresses in the ward in order, as the complaint goes, to impact the outcome of those elections. In terms of the scheme, the following are applicable. One, ahead of each by-election, the Commission makes available a copy of the voters' roll to be used in that by-election to all contestants in order to do, among others, the following: to enable those persons to identify persons who are not supposed to be registered on that roll, to raise objections, and for the Commission to make decisions on those objections. In the 2 wards, there were no objections ahead of those by-elections. In eThekwini, acting out of its own accord and concerned with what appeared to have been an inordinate number of persons registered against an informal settlement, the Commission redacted the addresses of those people from the roll so that when those voters presented on by-election day to vote, they ought to have first provided their address, and on confirmation that their address locate in their ward, they would be permitted to vote. That is permissible in terms of Section 47 of the Municipal Electoral Act. So, as far as you are concerned, there are no outstanding issues as it relates those 2 by-elections, and the Commission has declared the results of those by-elections as free and fair. The work of the Interministerial Committee on Local Government, ahead of each election, the state activates a interministerial committee, including stakeholders from various government departments, SAPS, and the Electoral Commission, to assist the Commission to plan for that election, to leverage the resources that the state holds in order to impact the environment to ensure that those elections will occur in relative state of peace. The Interministerial Committee is chaired and convened by the Minister responsible for cooperative governance, and it has been activated, and we have received a number of reports, and we have also submitted reports to that Interministerial Committee. In practical terms, the committee helps with coordinating the various actors. The CEO indicated that there are a number of dependencies ahead of local government elections. So where there are bottlenecks, the Interministerial Committee will assist with liaising with the various stakeholders to ensure that those bottlenecks are resolved so that they do not impact on the planning program for the elections.
Thank you so much. Hand number 2.
Good day. It's Nkosinathi Shazi from Power FM News. I just have 2 questions. Of the 192 parties that have provided an update, the South African Communist Party, have they made representation to preserve their status? Are they cancelling their registration, or did they not respond to the invitation? And secondly, on the potential rollout of e-voting, during the 2024 general elections at The Rock, the Results Operation Center, there was a minor incident where the screen went blank and the numbers, there was an issue with the numbers. Of course, the third biggest party, Umkhonto weSizwe, continues to maintain that the elections were rigged, saying that they were robbed of votes. So we are in the 4th industrial revolution. We're living in a time of identity theft. We're living in a time of cyber crimes. If e-voting is to be rolled out, are you guys prepared for all these eventualities if they were to come? Thank you very much.
Let me deal with the last one, and that's fine.
Okay. Thank you, guys. CEO, let's swap. Apologies.
Look, I think the statement is categorical that there is no decision to implement e-voting. Yet it's a matter that the country can't ignore. It's something that we need to debate, to look at the relative strengths and weaknesses, and to see what model, if we were to implement it, what model will be best suitable to our country, given the technological penetration which is differentiated for different areas in the country. The fact that the digital economy is uneven throughout the country. So those are the issues that must be taken into account in the conversation and in informing a decision whether such implementation is necessary. Of course, the integrity of the technological infrastructure also becomes important. It's an important variable in the consideration that the country must make whether or not to eventually adopt e-voting. The issue about the, and quite correctly you say a minor incident, because in the scheme of things it's important, but as you describe it, minor. It's a matter that is part of litigation and out of great difference to the Electoral Court. We believe we should not engage in the merits. However, our papers are filed, our heads of arguments are filed, and the matter will be heard on the 3rd of June in the Supreme Court of Appeal. And until the matter is heard, we would wish not to engage the merits, really out of deference to the Electoral Court. And really, we accept the fact that we are in a constitutional democracy, and part of that reality means participants must vindicate their rights if they believe something untoward has happened. So we're not griping against the fact that there's this matter which we must answer for in the Electoral Court. When you look at our papers, you'll see that we have given what we believe to be a cogent answer.
Yeah. Yes. Indeed, we can confirm that the SACP has made representation indicating that they wish to retain their status as a registered political party.
Last round, 1 to go, 2 to go, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to take your hand and then followed one at a time. Ne? After I take your hand, you'll follow. Do I have the last one for the road? Not, ne? We're happy. Thank you.
Yeah, Eric Nagi here from the Citizen newspaper. Yes, as you indicated with your figures, Stats SA figures, that the population of the youth in South Africa has grown from 14.7 to 21.6. But they still don't go to vote. What could be the cause of that? Is there any indication now? You know in the past, but now, what is the reason for them not to vote? That is the first question. The second question is, okay, the political parties are not declaring their donations above 100,000. Yes. Also, on that one, why are the parties not declaring? What does your investigation show? Are the parties perhaps hiding the big monies they get from the donors? Thank you.
In the longitudinal research that we've done with the Human Sciences Research Council, to understand what militates against young persons participating either as registered voters or as electors in elections. Two primary reasons appear. One is that young persons have had disproportionately fewer opportunities to register, and therefore the Commission persists with its bias targeted at young persons to invert their underrepresentation on the national voters' roll. Secondly, is that young persons, far from being characterized as apathetic, have certain serious concerns with the way in which they have experienced democracy or the democratic dividend. And added to that is a stubborn mistrust of key political institutions, which includes political parties and government at various spheres. So those are the key consideration that drives abstinence from young persons. It is not that they are disaffected or they are not interested in affairs of their country. The issue of the donations by political parties, what the statement makes is that compared to a period before an election, there has been a decline in the rate of disclosures, meaning they may have been tapering off of monies that have gone to parties in the 2 quarters that we're dealing with. We are not saying that there is deliberate underreporting or hiding of donations by political parties.
Thank you so much, DCO. The last one for the roads before we close. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Harwelo Magolego from UFM. Just to take his question forward, do you think the 70 parties that have actually contested the elections have done their part in improving the voter turnout? And along with that, there's been a suggestion that perhaps voting should be made compulsory because it's not just a right, but then so that it also becomes an obligation. What does the IEC think of such a suggestion? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Look, on whether voting becomes compulsory or not, that will require a far more greater deliberation of the country beyond just the IEC itself. However, as we understand it, there's a never again impulse in the Constitution which goes against compulsion. In other words, forcing people to do things they do not want to do. Whether compulsory voting will drive up the rate of participation remains to be seen. It is something that I think we need to further research, get more data so that when the policy choice is made, it is addressing the correct symptom, and so that you don't end up with a compulsion that only results in those who are going to vote in any case turning up and still having a significant number of persons not turning up. Okay.
Thank you, DCO. You have covered all the questions.
Have political parties done their part in improving the voter turnout?
So do you want to deal with it?
Madam Mbapela, there's one more additional question online.
Okay.
Would the boundaries increase the number of wards in the country when it's concluded?
Okay. The demarcation exercise, the number of wards are determined on the basis of the number of councillors determined. For example, if a municipality has 20 councillors determined, the law provides that half of those councillors must represent wards. There will be a change in the configuration of the number of wards, and we will only know that when the MDB hands over the ward boundaries finally at the end of October in 2025. The question whether the participation of the 7 political parties has resulted in higher turnout? A answer is no. In the past election, we saw a decline in voter turnout from the 60% to late 50%. Is it only a faction of political parties? No. Is there something that we could do as an electoral commission to act to impact turnout? Yes. Is it only the role of the electoral commission? And emphatic no. So all of us must do more to change the lived experience of voters so that they still believe in democracy as a preferred way of managing their public affairs.
Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We've got a statement with you. We have also sent it to all